right. So I'm going to be trying something here based on what was a kind of a surprising observation about what people think about very pure water versus like regular tap water. Um, Apparently, there's people out there who think that this is going to be super corrosive and very bad for your hands. Um, in terms of the corrosivity, trying to talk about it for using it against materials, that's one thing. But, anyways, the common logic that I was always told, and this whole thing came about, maybe I'll explain it while I'm doing this experiment here, is that this stuff is, like I said, it's going to be corrosive to materials, but also that it should dry out your hands. So I'm going to start off with my hands like this, and I'm going to put them into the water for 5 minutes. If I get any longer than that, I'm probably going to end up with some effect from that, just soaking it in the water. So I'm going to just give it a go here, and that's nice and cold water. So anyways, though, the gist of it is that the common knowledge that I had came from the nuclear reactor at the university I teach at, and they use ultra pure water in the reactor pool because, in order to make sure that you don't get any impurities activated by the neutron flux from the reactor, and also just don't want anything to be churning up. The last place you want to get hard water stains is in a nuclear reactor. So that's they basically, the legend is that if you put your hand in the water, then you're going to end up with maybe some dry skin, because the ultra pure water is going to be something that will suck all the ions out of your skin, and so it's not going to really like make your skin fall off or something like that, but it is going to be something that would be enough to cause it to be noticeable. And so, on the right hand side, I've just got water straight from our tap. On the left hand side, I have what basically would amount to semiconductor grade ultra pure water. It is run through a reverse osmosis system and then through a ion exchange resin. So this should be very deionized water. And so what I'm expecting is that I might see some drying on my skin. Of course, at the time I'm recording this is in November, so the weather is kind of dry anyways, but we'll see. I certainly, contrary to the dire warnings from some people, I don't see my fingers falling off or anything like that. So let's see, so far it's been like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, so I'll let it go for another 2.5 minutes. And yeah, this water is definitely a little on the cold side, but other than that, it's not really a problem. I don't know that I'd even be able to tell the difference between them. And yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else I can fill the time with here talking about the water. I was debating, and maybe I might still try to do it, but it's going to take a bit of a setup, as to actually test and see whether there's a difference in terms of like ultra pure water actually being corrosive to materials. Someone used the term atomically pure water, and which is ridiculous if you want to be pedantic about it, because water is a molecule, not an atom. But if I were to understand what they were meaning by that, I'd imagine something where there's not a single atom of impurity. how exactly you would pull that off, I'd say you'd probably have to go and like burn a hydrogen flame, and from there, don't let the water touch anything until it touches the thing you're trying to test the corrosion on first. So that's, you know, I'd say that that would be one thing I could try doing, but that's going to require making like a hydrogen generator, which is something I wouldn't mind doing, but I don't know that I've got time to do that anytime too soon. So I've got about 1 minute left on this, and then I'll be able to take my hands out of these cold baths here. But yeah, so far, no tingling sensations or anything else giving me a feeling like my skin's about to slough off here or something. So, wait just a little bit more, and I'll be ready to do this. Boy, it's very hard to fill time when you're being forced to do it. Okay. So I would say visually, I don't see much of a difference. They both seem a little red, but that's probably more due to the fact that that was cold water. But I will, I'll give it maybe like, 20 minutes, and we'll see what the difference is. Well, approximately 24 hours later, and both hands are perfectly fine. No real difference on either of them. I don't feel like the skin on the left hand is any drier than the other one. And so I guess that's a final conclusion on that. Does not appear that that makes a difference. Now that we've more or less established that ultra pure water really doesn't make a difference in terms of what effect it might have on you, let's actually talk a little bit about what does it really mean to say that you've got something that is corrosive, because it's not really what is exactly meant when you're thinking about something. I mean, yes, corrosive things can attack your skin, but in reality, what are they actually talking about here? We're talking about something that normally, when you think about it being corrosive, it's like an acid attacking a metal or something like that. There's a chemical reaction going on. And water really is not going to have a chemical reaction with anything in your body, at least not without some other energy input. And so, from that perspective, this really isn't corrosive under any circumstances. Its corrosiveness with certain metals, that's a different story. I mean, a good example of that is like, put sodium into water, and that's absolutely going to have a chemical reaction. Same thing with iron, it's going to rust over time. Um, Now, the other part of it though is, this question of like ions and such, and those getting pulled out of your skin. Well, first thing first is to just keep in mind, skin is actually watertight. If it weren't, then we'd be losing so much water in such a short amount of time that we'd have to be drinking lots of water just to keep ourselves from desiccating. Um, the other thing about it is that the ability to suck ions out of something, it's you need to understand that the way that ions move is usually through something that's called diffusion. It's the same thing like if you put a drop of dye into some water and then watch it spread out over time. That's what's going to end up happening there. And so it's driven by density differences or concentration differences. So why would ultra pure water suck something out of it? It wouldn't. But what would happen is that, assuming you have a permeable membrane, which again the skin is not, then you would find that all the, say, sodium and potassium and other ions in your skin and your body would transfer from the high concentration inside to the lower concentration outside. That's pretty much what would end up happening. And the speed at which that happens is based on these diffusion constants. And so they don't have to necessarily be super fast. And so from that perspective, there's really not going to be a whole lot that would come out because, again, the skin being fairly impermeable is not going to allow it. Now, the other thing about it is, the whole idea was that ultra pure water was supposed to be dangerous. Regular tap water, well, I mean, last time I checked, most people don't worry about taking a shower or a bath or washing their hands. So, what's the difference on that? Well, tap water is going to have some ions in it. Some that are just going to be there naturally due to the source of the water that it's coming from, or the pipes that it's going through. And some of them are going to be added in by municipalities and such. And that's pretty much not going to be a really high concentration. I mean, if it was, you would notice it. You would actually taste salt and whatnot in there. So from that perspective, it's not really going to be that much of a difference from the perspective of your body, which, if we think about the concentrations of ions in there, they liken it, so like the blood, they liken it to the concentration of seawater. And so it's a pretty substantial difference there. So the difference between ultra pure and tap water from the perspective of a difference in concentration is not all that high. So therefore, in the long run, this just isn't really going to have any effect on it. And, I feel actually a little silly now that I even believed the idea that it would have any impact on your skin. But, this is how we learn. All right, well, thank you very much for watching. I do seriously hope that you will consider subscribing, and if nothing else, hit that like button. I am still trying to grow the channel some more, and I've got a lot of interesting ideas and stuff that's going to be coming up soon. All right, thank you very much.